Welcome to the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. And they don't want it with Chicago, but they're trying it anyway. We will get to all of that a little later on the show. I am your host, Adrianne Shropshire, and it is Friday, which is really just to say it is another day that ends in the letter Y in America. While the news coming out of Washington is generally bad, and as cities across the country continue to prepare to be invaded by their own federal government, I want to start off today with some good news. So we've talked often on this show about the importance of finding trusted messengers. We've talked about the importance of supporting independent media. We've talked about the importance of supporting independent journalists. And particularly this week, I think, given that Wednesday, I think October 1st, was the first time that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, public media in this country, has gone without support from the federal government in years. So we're seeing independent stories being sidelined, left in the vault with the vault door closed. And so it's more important, and I think you all know this now more than ever, to make sure that we are finding sources of news and information from folks that we trust. And obviously, we also saw this week again, right, as mainstream and major media companies continue to fold. Quite frankly, we saw more of that this week with major media companies choosing their bottom lines over their responsibility to the public and their roles as the fourth pillar of democracy. And of course, you all know this, right, because you are listening to Unapologetically Black and Unapologetically Progressive KBLA. But this week, we actually saw the expansion of Black-owned or Black-led media. So I want to tell you two things that you may have missed. One is that earlier this summer, I talked about the State of the People Power Tour, right? There was a set of organizers and strategists and media folks going from city to city, mobilizing and informing our community while providing also care, right, and mutual aid for those in need in cities across the country. I had Angela Rye on, who was really sort of the mastermind behind the idea of the State of the People Tour. But the State of the People actually started as a 24-hour live stream earlier this year to provide context and analysis when you all will remember Trump was doing his first joint address to Congress. And so it was an opportunity to pull together Black journalists and creators and advocates and organizers and strategists to break down what was the very expected nonsense, right, that was clearly going to come out of that evening's joint address. But we also wanted to give voice to people who wanted to be in a space together that night, right? Things were at the very beginning of the Trump administration, and people were looking for spaces to build community. So tens of thousands of people joined that night, or that day, actually, the whole 24 hours of the State of the People live stream. Well, last night, update, right? So the tour happened. It happened across the summer. Last night, the State of the People launched the State of the People TV with its first offering that's called The Signal Live, which is a show that will be airing weekly on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, right? And so last night, while there were great conversations and very, very smart people, there were also resources offered to folks who are dealing with job loss in this environment. There were resources offered to folks who are concerned about the chaotic health guidance that is coming out of the CDC these days, and a lot more. So if you're looking for another trusted source of news and information, you can learn more by going to stateoftheppl.com. Stateoftheppl.com. And so that'll be a weekly show. The Signal Live will be a weekly show that you might want to check out. And the second piece of good news is that The Root, the publication that was launched by Professor Henry Louis Gates and Donald Graham at the Washington Post back in 2008, is finally returned to Black ownership after being in the hands of private equity firms for the last several years. So Ashley Allison, who you all might recognize as a political analyst on CNN, but Ashley actually has a long history as a political strategist within the Democratic Party. Ashley purchased The Root from a media company, a private equity firm, through her company, Watering Hole Media. In a statement, Ashley said that The Root has always been about preserving culture and creating clarity in a world full of distractions. Owning the power to tell our own story, she said, is a rich tradition The Root is committed to upholding. So I know that you will all be looking forward to seeing what Ashley does over at The Root. I know I am. I will be paying attention and going over to the website to see what they're doing over there. So that's the second good story. Coming up, we're going to be talking with Tiffany Walden, who is the editor-in-chief of The Tribe, a Chicago-based news outlet that is also an independently owned Black media platform that has been doing some of the best reporting and coverage of the incursion of federal law enforcement agents in Chicago. Given Trump's speech earlier this week before military leadership, what's happening in Chicago and in Memphis and still here in LA and in DC, we should understand these occupations to be exactly what he called them when he was speaking to the military leadership, which is training grounds for our military to practice warfare, right, against their fellow Americans. So Tiffany and I will talk about how this is playing out in Chicago, how the Tribe is reporting on this story, and how they're engaging with community members to help tell the story. And later in the show, we'll be joined by political strategist Gabby C. to talk about the upcoming No Kings March that's planned, that are being planned for around the country for October 18th, and how groups are navigating this moment, particularly when the President of the United States has all but said that it is illegal to protest him. So we have a lot coming up. We're going to talk about the government shutdown later on in the show as well. But stay with us. We have a lot to talk about. This is the Black Pack on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Charmin Ultra Strong. You can use less, better than the rest. Charmin Ultra Strong. Your booty past the clean test. Diamond weave texture, it's the best. Study up, teach a lesson on fresh. Your booty past the clean test. Yes, sir. Charmin Ultra Strong.
Charmin Ultra Strong with diamond weave texture cleans better than the leading one-ply brand, so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Dude, did you order
the new iPhone 17 Pro? Got it from Verizon, the best 5G network in America. I never looked so good.
You look the same.
But with this camera, everything looks better, especially me.
You haven't changed your hair in 15 years. Selfies? Check, please.
New and existing customers can get the new iPhone 17 Pro, designed to be the most powerful iPhone ever, with eligible phone trade-in and unlimited ultimate. Any condition guaranteed. Best 5G source root metrics data, United States, 1H 2025. All rights reserved. Trade-in and additional terms apply for all offers. See Verizon.com for details.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate, with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities. And then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Farm. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
You don't talk to me like that. You don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
You are listening to the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. Last week, you all will remember that we had Madiba Denny on, the deputy editor and senior contributor at Balls and Strikes, to talk about the upcoming Supreme Court term and some of the scandalous decisions that they have made using their shadow docket, notably the ruling that gave ICE permission to racially profile people in order to carry out their inhumane assaults on our communities. Yesterday, Madiba had a piece in Balls and Strikes that you all should check out if you get a chance about that ruling. And I want to read an excerpt to you from that piece. Madiba says, armed federal immigration agents conducted a midnight raid of a South Shore apartment building in Chicago, breaking down the doors, pulling people from their homes, and detaining everyone in the 5-story building. Adults and children alike were zip-tied for hours, regardless of their citizenship status. One witness who lived across the street described upon seeing naked children separated from their mothers, she described herself crying and asking the agents about their humanity. The woman said one of them literally laughed, and then the agent replied, "F them kids." Joining me now to talk about what's happening in Chicago as federal agents increase their presence in the city and surrounding suburbs is Tiffany Walden, editor-in-chief of The Tribe, a Black-owned news outlet in Chicago that's been doing a phenomenal job covering this and other news across the Chicago area. Tiffany, welcome back. It feels like a lifetime ago since you were last on, and we were talking about Trump's offensive visit, or whatever that was, to the National Association of Black Journalists Conference during the campaign. But you all are doing a great job on coverage, and I follow you all. I'm looking for you every day, trying to figure out what's happening, so I appreciate the work that you are doing. But can you just share with our audience some of what is happening in Chicago right now? Because I think while we are hearing some of it, I think that the details of it are not necessarily getting through, and it all seems pretty crazy.
Thank you for your kind words about our work and for inviting me back to the show. I appreciate it. And it's not breaking through. Every time I turn on cable news, for example, I see nothing about what's happening in Chicago, what's happening in D.C. still, what's happening in L.A. still, what's now happening in Memphis. So it's really up to folks who are on the ground in those cities to tell these stories. And from, what I'm watching is, everyone is stepping up to the plate to tell these stories. Here in Chicago, back in August, the Trump administration started to threaten to send in the troops. And the city itself, the elected officials, our mayor, our governor, everyone, stood together and said, we do not want the troops here. And you heard Trump kind of waver and go back and forth on like, maybe I won't send them there. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. And so the troops deployment never necessarily happened. So what did happen is the surge in immigration federal agents that were sent to Chicago in early September, and they have an operation that they're calling Midway Blitz. And that has been raining so much terror down on the whole Chicagoland area.
Right.
It's not just within the Chicago city limits, it's also its surrounding suburbs. And I think that's a part of their tactic in order to stretch everyone thin.
Yeah, and it seems like there is, we're seeing this, obviously this is, the strategy seems to be to send in the federal law enforcement agencies from various agencies, ICE obviously leading, and then saying that troops have to go there to protect the ICE agents, right? And that's becomes the the pretext, right, for getting.
I'm losing you a little bit on the call. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'm just saying it just
can
seems.
You hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. It just seems like there is a pretext for getting the National Guard into cities. But I think the other thing that's happening in Chicago that it would be great for you to talk about is like the story that I just told about the I don't even know what to call it, this sort of assault on this apartment building where apparently troops were descending on the apartment building from helicopters as if they were, dropping into Fallujah or something. But the neighborhoods in which these assaults are happening. Describe to us what those neighborhoods are. Who lives in those neighborhoods?
Sure, and we've done some reporting on that as well. So the Chicago neighborhoods that's really in the news this week, one of them is called South Shore, and it's on the south side of Chicago. It's a community that's predominantly Black. A lot of the apartment buildings out there house Black people. There is a community that struggles with housing out there. There are slumlord apartment complexes out there, places that don't have the best living conditions. And it's also near. You may have heard that there's this Obama Presidential Library that's being built in Chicago. South Shore is one of the communities that's been fighting for the past 6, 7, 8 years for community benefits agreements so that they don't get displaced from their neighborhoods.
By the library.
By the library, right, because once the library comes into the South Side, that's going to change the dynamic of the economic situation out there, and people have already started to be displaced.
Yep.
So if you go back 2022 to now, Chicago has been one of the destinations that the Republican governor, Greg Abbott down in Texas, has been busing migrants to sanctuary cities, with one of them being Chicago, and a lot of those migrants have landed in South Shore and other Black communities in Chicago, such as North Lawndale on the west side, et cetera. And so now you have in South Shore particularly pockets of people from Latin American countries living amongst the Black community, living in these same apartment complexes like the one that had the raid this past week. And so when the federal agents showed up and displayed extreme military force, I mean, Black Hawks, people scaling down buildings, climbing up ladders, busting through the apartment complex, what have you, they also were busing in on Black people that lived in those apartments.
Right.
And so it's pretty much spreading pretty wildly on social media, but you can see the videos of Black and Latino folks being detained. There's stories that the federal agents separated everyone and detained Black people in one area and detained Latinos in another area, and they were asking people, do you have a criminal record?
Right.
They were. So this week has been the week where it's really started to touch Black Chicago communities, and the same day that a raid happened in Bronzeville, which is not too far from South Shore on the south side, there was a federal agent raid where they ran up on a homeless shelter and detained people there. There's been a Black pastor who's been talking about that raid. That same day on the west side of Chicago, which is another predominantly Black area of the city, you have federal agents putting a Black man in a chokehold.
Right.
And that video has been going.
Yeah, I saw you all had a piece up about the mayor's response to that imagery. of that black man being choked with an agent with his hands around the man's neck in broad daylight. Yeah. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's okay. And so, that story is one that still has a lot of questions to be asked because DHS responded, of course, and denied the allegations that they choked someone, but we saw it on video.
It's an actual,
we watched it on video. And on top of that, in the DHS statement, they said that they were responding to a theft in progress. So now we're running into this place of what is y'all's jurisdiction?
Right.
Are you all responding to local crime? Why would you be following up on a theft in progress? Isn't that what the Chicago Police Department is supposed to be doing? So there's all these unanswered questions around that and the raids that's still taking place. And even today, an older person, Jesse Fuentes in Chicago, was cuffed by federal agents at a hospital trying to stand up for someone they were trying to, I believe, detain in the hospital. So, yeah, it's a lot going on the ground that it's starting to spread now on social media, but we're not seeing it on cable news or on mainstream media in the way that we did, per se, in 2020 during the uprising.
It is, I mean, partly the reason why I wanted you to explain what these neighborhoods are is both because it's important for people to understand, to your point, these are black neighborhoods, and they also happen to be the neighborhoods where, when Greg Abbott was engaged in human trafficking people across the country, folks ended up in those neighborhoods, and now they're coming to get the people, right, or anybody, right, really, but certainly using, again, the sort of pretext of that's where people went, and so they are there to get them. The other thing that I think is, I hate to say breaking through. I think we're hearing some of the stories. I don't know that anything is breaking through, although the siege of that apartment building apparently was in People magazine. So maybe this is an indicator, right, that this is that these stories are going to start to get out there. But the other story that, if you could just talk about for a moment and give folks some context for, is what's happening at the Broadview ICE Center, or detention center, ICE detention center, because we've been seeing images come out of that particular neighborhood where we're seeing protesters outside of the ICE detention center getting thrown to the ground, being tear gassed. There was today, I think there was a lot going on there today. So give our listeners a sense of what's happening at the Broadview ICE detention center, and what does that neighborhood look like? Because that's not Chicago. That's not the city.
Right. Right, that's not Chicago, and that's what makes this so challenging because, I know LA and like the county itself is pretty spread out, and Chicago is really similar, where everything is kind of spread out and it's hard to get from one place to another with traffic. So Broadview is a suburb, a western suburb about 12 miles outside of Chicago, which would be a 15-ish minute drive from downtown if there's no traffic. If there's traffic, it'll take you like an hour to get there sometimes. But
that sounds like LA, yeah.
Right. Broadview is a pretty quiet suburb, though. They have a black mayor. They have people of color in leadership out there. And it's a suburb that a lot of black people who lived in the city prior to the 1968 uprisings following King's assassination. A lot of people who lived in the city moved out to those western suburbs of like Broadview, Maywood, what have you. Broadview is still one of the neighborhoods that has a pretty good, like, sizable, I would say, like, middle class of black people there. And so this detention facility is kind of blocked off into an industrial park that's on the outskirts of Broadview. And, if you're just driving down the street, you wouldn't see it. You wouldn't even pay attention to it because it's just a lot of commercial buildings and kind of property over there that's industrial. So they're in this kind of enclave where they're bringing people who they're detaining across the Chicagoland area to this location. I've seen stories where there's, hundreds of people that's detained in that Broadview facility. It's boarded up, and every Friday protesters, demonstrators, elected officials, everybody gets up and goes out to Broadview and they protest outside the facility. I went out there 2 weeks ago. While I was out there, that was the first day that it really, really, really escalated to excessive use of force. There were federal agents on top of the building like snipers, shooting pepper balls down at people, aiming directly at their face, at their bodies. Federal agents also were throwing tear gas canisters at people, protesters, elected officials. The mayor of another suburb, Evanston, he was out there. Political hopefuls were out there. They all were hit with the tear gas canisters, and particularly journalists. I watched them intentionally throw a tear gas canister towards the row of journalists that were doing their stand-ups out there next to the clearly marked ABC 7 Chicago media truck. And so today with that protest, now Pritzker is under fire, our governor, J.B. Pritzker, because the Illinois State Police went out there last night and they put up boundaries, these kind of borders around the area and calling it a free speech zone. And people are critiquing them as assisting the federal agents because then today they were the ones that were packing people up into Cook County Sheriff's Office vans and detaining people. So it's that's a different level of movement action happening out there, but it shows the ruthlessness of what the federal agents are willing to do.
On the other side, I want to come back to that conversation because I do think the sort of conflation, I don't know if conflation is the right word, but there's having multiple law enforcement agencies engaging also makes it very complicated. So we'll continue this conversation with Tiffany Walden, editor-in-chief of The Tribe, when we come forward. Stay with us.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Esther Dillard with BIN News Now. 50 months behind bars or more than 4 years in prison is the sentence for Sean Diddy Combs. A judge threw in a $500,000 fine. Prosecutors called for Combs to get at least 11 years in prison, while defense lawyers said the maximum sentence should be 14 months or time served. He was acquitted of the top racketeering and prostitution counts. New York trial attorney Rebecca Rose Woodland spoke about this case to Fox News.
He's getting 4 years. He'll get the benefit of having served a year already in federal prison. He is lucky compared to what he did and what even the jury found that he did.
NBC News reports the judge said this sentence was about sending a message to abusers. Combs will be on supervised release for 5 years once he leaves prison. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
In Long Beach, a crash on the 710. It's a northbound side. You're going to see it just on your way to Del Amo Boulevard. Blocking the left lane, there are brake lights starting at Pico. In Bellflower, a stall has the left lane blocked on the westbound 91. It's just as you pass Bellflower Boulevard, red for you from Orangethorpe. And on the 210 in Monrovia, on the westbound side, passengers pushing a stalled vehicle out of the center lane over into the right-hand shoulder.
Do you really know what's in your tap water? We believe your water should support your health, not work against it. Upgrade your home with a LifeSource Whole House system. Clean water from every tap, no salt, no hassle. Call 1-800-WATER-99 or visit LifeSourceWater.com.
Warranty limitations apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Magic Johnson's Washington Commanders confirmed Friday afternoon that quarterback Jaden Daniels will start Sunday's game against the Chargers at SoFi. Daniels, who grew up in San Bernardino, missed the last 2 games with a sprained left knee. Look for Magic, a part owner of the Commanders, to be in a luxury suite at SoFi with Commanders management and staff. If you have Lamar Jackson in your fantasy league, you need to get a replacement for him right now. The 2-time MVP is not playing Sunday in Baltimore's home game against Houston. Jackson has a hamstring injury. Tough matchup for Tim Skipper on Saturday in his interim role as UCLA's head football coach. 0-4, UCLA is facing Penn State, the number 7 team in the country, at the Rose Bowl. 12:30 kickoff. USC has a bye this weekend. The Trojans are at home next Saturday against Michigan. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, y'all to give us what we want.
Gotta give us what we need. Hey!
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power!
September is World Alzheimer's Month, a time to shine a light on a public health crisis that deeply impacts Black families. 1 in 5 Black adults ages 70 and older is living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD, and the risk is twice as high compared to white adults. But AD isn't just forgetting a name or losing track of time. Signs of early AD could be repeating questions, missing appointments, or struggling with bills and daily tasks. These things aren't a normal part of aging. Here's the good news. Treatments are available that may help if AD is diagnosed early. If you notice changes in memory or daily routines, whether in yourself or a loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatalsearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com to learn more about the signs and symptoms and a potential treatment option. This message is brought to you by AZI.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
We are continuing our conversation with Tiffany Walden, editor-in-chief of The Tribe, and we're talking about the escalating attack on Black-led cities and communities, specifically what's happening with the escalation in Chicago neighborhoods. And so, Tiffany, I was mentioning earlier in the show about Trump talking to military leaders this week and saying that they were, some of them in the room were going to be taking part in the deployment of the military into our cities, and he said that they would be training grounds, right? That our cities, our inner cities, would be training grounds. And when listening to you describe what is happening in Chicago right now, right? Snipers on tops of buildings shooting pellets at protesters, agents rappelling down from helicopters onto the tops of buildings where in the middle of the night, mind you. I think that's the thing, if folks don't know, that it's important detail here about the raid on that apartment building is it was the middle of the night, and so they snatched kids out of their beds and separated them from their parents and zip tied them, and so it sounds like there isn't a militarization of our cities that is coming, right? But this kind of open display of military action, it's here already. And so I know that and people are you talked about the protests that are happening out at the Broadview ICE detention center, but you all are also out talking to community members. I know you all published a series of interviews asking whether or not people wanted troops deployed into Chicago. And so when you were just talking to the people of Chicago in their neighborhoods, what did you hear from folks? What did they say? And was there anything that surprised you that you heard from them?
Yes, so we did a video where we walked around the west side of Chicago particularly and asked Black women, do they want Trump to come here? And that was because Trump had that,
right,
I guess, press conference where he said the Black ladies of Chicago, the beautiful ladies, want him to come
beautiful
here.
Black ladies want him.
Beautiful Black ladies. And that video that we did received a really good response from people. Everyone in the video except one said they did not want troops in Chicago. Instead, they wanted resources. They wanted affordable housing. They wanted to address crime holistically.
Mm-hmm.
Crime is down in Chicago. We're seeing historic lows of crime this year. And a lot of that is because crime is being addressed at the root of the problem. The mayor has been increasing the youth jobs in the summer here in Chicago. And so people want to see more things like that, whereas this administration, Trump's administration, is cutting a lot of those things, and that's impacting the resources that we have here in Chicago. So the folks that we spoke to, except one, did not want
right.
Trump to come here.
Right. And that is, that's the same story that we're hearing coming out of a lot of these cities where either federal agents or the military has been deployed. The same story, right? That crime is down, right? That mayors have been innovative in their strategies for reducing crime, whether it is Baltimore, which hasn't yet seen folks, come in, whether it is Los Angeles, whether it is Memphis, right? We're seeing historic drops in crime in cities. So it's really sort of, again, like the pretense of it all, right? The sort of setup for the invasion. And I know that you all, also have talked in some ways about like how you reframe, right, the crime narrative, right? And so I wonder if you could talk just a little bit about like some of the takeaways, right, from the series that you all did, right, on reframing the crime narrative, and because it's both for the the internal kind of conversations that we're having inside of our communities, but also to just get actual truth out into the world.
Right. When we did our Reframing Crime series, the goal of that was to have a more in-depth conversation about crime other than it's happening in the Black neighborhood or it's happening in the hood or the Black people don't care about killing each other. That's far from the truth here in Chicago. Anytime that like one of the stories we did was a listicle. Anytime that there is a shooting in the city, particularly a fatal shooting in a Black neighborhood, there's 13 plus grassroots organizations that come out and provide healing and resources and meet the needs of folks who are grappling with that loss in the community. We had conversations about 911 where, people said that something can be happening to them, but they don't want to call 911 because they know when they call 911, it's a possibility that they or someone else is going to be killed.
Right.
We talked about social media and how a lot of beefs start on social media and how there's organizations that are working to try to, work with youth around some of those things. And even this past spring in Chicago, there was a really big conversation about SNAP curfews. Every spring, every summer, there's this select group of pro-police alders, all the people who want to enact these emergency curfews that gives the police superintendent power to enact a curfew at any time and at any place with only like a 30-minute warning. And organizers and the youth. Right. I want to make clear that the youth are a part of organizing here in Chicago. They stood up and they said, we don't want this. Like, we don't want the police chief to have even more powers than he has right now. And we partnered with another newsroom called Southside Weekly, and we did a series where we talked about how the youth today don't even have the same third spaces that my generation or others had before. They don't have anywhere to go when they all gather at the beach or all gather somewhere. That's them trying to create a space for themselves. And so I think that with our reframing crime work, it's beyond just a series. It's a part of our mission as well, that we take a step back and we look deeper into like, why are people doing the things that they're doing, and what resources, what is the lack there that they're trying to fill by the activities or by the things that they engage in.
And that's, I mean, a lot of the reporting that you all do just the story that you talked about, going out and asking, the video of asking people what they thought about troops coming, did they want them there? I mean, you've created this sort of space in this particular crisis that allows people to help tell the story also, right? That allows them to capture video and get that to you. Which we're seeing a lot of this, I think, around the country. I know that definitely happened here in Los Angeles with a couple of platforms where it really is kind of participatory journalism, right? Where the people who are experiencing what's happening are actually participants in making sure the story gets told. Is that a good or accurate, fair way to talk about how you all have tried to expand the way that journalism is done and these stories get told?
Sure. So we have a space where we're democratizing the op-ed section. It's called The People. And, for most mainstream big newspapers, the op-ed section is written by someone that they've chosen. Sometimes it's someone in the room that has moved into that position, or, it's someone on their board, what have you. And it's the same voices saying the same things over and over again. The Chicago Tribune editorial board here, for example, is notorious for being right, like on the right end of the political spectrum in a lot of the things that they publish. So we wanted to democratize the opinion section and just allow for anybody to submit their opinion and to write to us. And me as the editor, I'll take time for people who are new to writing. I'll help them, gather their words together and organize it in a certain way. And then there's people who, elected officials or political strategists who come right in and just submit their statements, or they submit their essays or what have you, and we publish it right on up there. So that's one way that we do it. And then a second way, in this particular moment where we're seeing this surge in ICE activity, we're partnering with 10 other local independent newsrooms in Chicago to ask people that are recording the ICE activity that they see, ask them to send that footage to us. And that allows us to, look for trends, to look for, is it like figure out if this is the FBI that's here, or can we figure out who these agents are that's here. And so that's another way that people have been, engaging with us and being a part of the reporting. Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about, when we come forward, I want to talk about just the role of journalism right now. And because I think that you all, again, I've said, and I'll say again, I can continue to say it, I think you all are doing really great work. But I want to talk a little bit when we come forward about the role of journalists and the suppression of journalists in this moment, particularly when these stories have to be getting out. So more with Tiffany Walden when we come forward. Stay with us.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
When you turn to the Employment Development Department, we'll help you get there. Whether it's support for you and your family while you find a new job, or the resources to focus on your recovery after illness or injury, We can help you move forward, from support while you bond with your newborn to helping serve your family while your partner serves our country. Your EDD. We'll help you get there. For more information, visit edd.ca.gov.
Ready to order?
Yes. We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with a Capital One Saver card, so let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything. The Capital One Saver card is at table 27, and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, Chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
You don't talk to me like that. You don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
You are listening to The Black Pack, and we are wrapping up our conversation with Tiffany Walden, the editor-in-chief of The Tribe. So, Tiffany, we've touched on a couple times, and I feel like we can't actually say this enough, right? The importance of journalism right now, the importance of black media right now when we think about not just the suppression that's happening in cities around the country, but clearly what is to come, right? If we are to take the President of the United States at his word. And earlier this week, you wrote about, and I think you mentioned earlier too, about a journalist who was detained while covering the protests outside the Broadview Detention Center. Can you just talk a little bit about what feels like and this happened here in LA too, right? But the sort of growing interference, right, with the freedom of the press, right, and the role of journalists in this really historic moment.
Yeah, it's really scary. I'm in chats with my peers, and we're all just trying to figure out how to stay encouraged and how to protect each other and how to still work amid all of these fears. We just saw today that there's a journalist who is being deported for covering anti-Trump protests. I believe that was in Atlanta or in Georgia. So we're in a time where any sort of dissent, any sort of opposition to what is happening, and of course I'm saying those words to mean very vaguely, because this administration is taking language and just vaguely interpreting it to work in their favor. We don't know, what's to come down the line, but we do know that we have to remain steadfast and being truth tellers. That's what we're committed to here at the Tribe. Just pushing through that fear. We stand in the tradition of the abolitionist press. and they were under duress and experienced different fears and attacks when they were doing their reporting, in the 1800s, and so it would be remiss of us if we didn't do that same work. So we're hanging in there. We're hoping that our community continues to rally around us and support us, and to back us financially as well. We have on our website ways that people can become members to help support our work, and we also have on our website ways that people can make a contribution to help support our work on the ground as we continue to cover. Again, this is stretched out across the whole Chicagoland area, so everywhere from within the city out to the suburb of Broadview, what have you. So we're hanging in there, and we're just fighting through it.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on the history of the abolitionist press. We, obviously the black press has always been under threat at different points, maybe more intense than at other points in the history of this country. And it is true that you all, KBLA, others, right, are sort of stand in that tradition of truth tellers. I wonder how. So I ask about you all going out and talking to people about whether or not they wanted troops in Chicago, but I'm wondering how people are feeling now, right? Now that the raids are happening, now that there's the protesters are being brutalized outside the detention facility. What are you all hearing from Black Chicagoans? What are people feeling about what is happening in this moment as they're seeing this play out? I was scrolling here on Blue Sky a minute ago and saw another story that you all reported on about a man being chased by federal agents and it being witnessed by a black man who was at a BP gas station. So this is just sort of happening as people are going about their days, right? As people are working, witnessing, and these this sort of pursuit, right, of people who there's no evidence that they've done anything. But how are people feeling about what's happening right now in the city?
Oh, they're definitely scared. There's kind of this. So there's, like I think I mentioned at the top of the show, there's been a lot of tension between the Latino and Black communities because of the way the Republican governor busts migrants up here. We have a story that we published in April about how the state placed them in Black neighborhoods because of the housing stock and the quality and the affordability of the rent there. So there's been this tension that's been going on this whole time, right? Of just like, why are we spending all these resources on these people?
Right.
And so for quite some time, a lot of people in the Black community here in Chicago didn't think that the immigration issue was everyone's issue. And some people even have rooted for it. They're just like, yeah, get these people out of our neighborhood. And you kind of get a sense of that in this story about the feds chasing this Black man through East Garfield Park, which is on the west side of the city. And that on that same day, a part of the same incident, there's a video of the federal agents placing a Black man in a chokehold. And you can hear a bystander in the video say, y'all are supposed to be choking out Mexicans.
Right.
So there's been a whole dialogue here in the city since then about, how do we have this conversation within our own community in a sensitive way that doesn't chastise people for not knowing or understanding that this entire surge of ICE and immigration enforcement is not really about immigration,
right.
And it's about something else.
Right.
But at the same time, it's a lot of shock in the Black community. The guy the security guard at the BP station who witnessed some of this stuff, he said, he wanted to walk up and continue to follow what was going on, but the agents had what he called M16s on them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and he said, they were yelling at people to get back, and he doesn't know what their rules or their protocols are. He doesn't know if they're going to get mad and just start shooting those guns at people, because we haven't seen federal agents, and these are people dressed in military fatigue.
Right.
They have masks on. They have military helmets and different gadgets and all this stuff on that we haven't a civilian hasn't seen up close before.
Right.
So it's just very scary to know that these people are walking around in communities, and you just don't know what they're going to do or how they're going to provoke people.
Right. Which is, it's that the instilling that kind of fear is really the point here. It's sort of, I think they're hoping that people, don't push back, that people don't protest, that people just go inside their house and close their door. But that's not really the history of our community, to just let stuff happen to us. And I don't think that that's going to be the case now. We're going to be talking about that a little bit more about the No Kings protest coming up with Gabby C in just a little while. But tell us, you said just a couple of minutes ago, you talked about how people can support you. Can you just, for folks who either want to support, if folks want to follow the work, follow the storytelling that you all are doing in Chicago right now, where can people follow you? That's the first question.
For sure. Our website is The Tribe, TheTriiibe.com. All of our stories are published on the Tribe, and they're available to the public for free. We don't have a paywall. And if you want to support us financially, there's two ways you can do that. You can join our newsletter. It's called Reshape, and in that newsletter we unpack a lot of the political sentiment and different political activity that's happening right now in Chicago and beyond. And then you can also, there's a pop-up that'll show up on the website that encourages you to make a financial contribution to support the Tribe. So, yeah, those are some ways you can support us.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany. I know you all have a lot going on. And again, like I said today, I know there was a lot just going on today in and around this issue. So I'll continue to follow you all's coverage and appreciate the work that you all are doing. And we'll check in with you just to get some more updates on what's going on and what people need to know as the stories start to come out of Chicago. So thanks for joining. When we come forward, we'll be joined by political strategist Gabby C to talk about the next round of No Kings actions coming up on October 18th. Stay with us.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Esther Dillard with BIN News Now. Sean Diddy Combs has been sentenced to over 4 years in prison. Combs was found guilty on 2 prostitution-related charges in July. Prosecutors called for Combs to get at least 11 years in prison, while defense lawyers said the maximum should be 14 months or time served. He was acquitted of top racketeering and prostitution counts, but one black legal analyst says this is not the end. Civil lawsuits against Combs are piling up.
Those survivors' words are going to be really bolstered by this sentence, by Cassie, by Jane, and by any of the other survivors who have come forward as well.
A judge said the sentence of a little more than 4 years and a $500,000 fine for Sean Diddy Combs was about sending a message to abusers. Inside the court, he talked about the brutal beating of Cassie. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
A couple of collisions in South L.A. on the 105. First on the eastbound side at Broadway. 2 cars in the center divider there. The second's going to be east of there at Central. They're also in the center divider. It's heavy traffic through the whole stretch. Brake lights from the 110 to just after Long Beach downtown. There's a crash on the southbound 110 to westbound 10 connector. One of those vehicles has made it to the Washington off-ramp, currently blocking that off-ramp.
Do you really know what's in your tap water? We believe your water should support your health, not work against it. Upgrade your home with a LifeSource whole house system. Clean water from every tap, no salt, no hassle. Call 1-800-WATER-99